All right, so I'm joined by Dave Sellick today. Dave runs a firm called Sidgrove. He's going to be talking us through how he uses Slack as a communication tool, not only to communicate with his clients, but to actually deliver what he calls advisory services to them as well. I guess to kick the conversation off, Dave, some important context that might be helpful for framing the conversation. Do you mind giving us a bit of background about the firm, the types of clients you work with, and the types of services that you deliver?
Of course, yeah, thanks for having me on. So I run an accounting firm called Sidgrove, sort of in the London kind of region. I originally started in Old Street in central London, and then COVID happened and now I'm fully virtual. So I originally trained with PwC back in 2008. I joined there in audit for a brief period of time. Didn't think I was going to have a career in accounting because I hated it that much. But after a year in industry, after that with what's now Global Group, so an outdoor advertising company, I spent most of my career as a head of finance of various founder-owned businesses, startup businesses, and worked with around sort of 5 or 6 years or so, before seeing, I guess, a couple of things: an opportunity to provide the service I was doing for one business at a time as a head of finance to many by using cloud technology, new technology. And then also I saw I felt that the industry, that small businesses weren't being well served by the accountants that I was coming across as a client, and also just meeting business owners, and felt that I kind of wanted to give it a go at trying to do a better job, basically. So that was kind of the inspiration for starting Sidgrove, my firm, and it's kind of evolved a little bit from there. So I do work with around 50 different clients in different capacities. So maybe around half of those I'm working with on a regular basis, almost like I was as a head of finance, and putting out management packs each month and forecasting and regular communications and keeping in contact with those guys. But I also do other bits in industry. I work with some firms, I do some random consulting, and I do have some smaller clients that I do more ad hoc kind of compliance work. Outside of that, I guess I spend a fair bit of my time pushing the boundaries with technology and what I kind of refer to as developing this evolving blueprint for an accountancy firm of the future, which I haven't scaled out yet, so it's just me. But watch this space. I'll be sort of releasing some content and a group and community over the coming months, which hopefully will give a little bit more insight to what I'm doing there, and I'll be looking to share what I've been creating and to scale, not necessarily through my firm, maybe, but hopefully by helping some of the firms in industry as well. And I guess the key thing for today is that the slant from my side is really on that advisory piece. I came from industry, basically, and I've kind of focused on how do I take that service and scale it and obviously incorporate compliance. But that's really been my focus. So I guess I'm coming from the other way around, whereas I feel like a lot of firms who are coming from compliance are trying to do more of that. I feel that's where I can add probably the most value.
Nice. So just to recap, you're delivering essentially fractional head of finance support to around about 25 businesses on your own.
Yeah, that's a large part of what I do, but that's sort of. And I do compliance as well, so I'm a bit of.
The reason I ask is because that sounds like it's a lot of work, and I guess Slack is something that is helping to streamline and deal with a lot of the kind of back and forth communication and everything else that goes into doing that. So I guess to start with, right, so Slack is a communication platform. People may or may not have heard of it. If you haven't, go away and Google it. We don't need to dive into it in too much detail in terms of what it is right now. But I guess the first thing to look at is why did you choose Slack over other communication channels? Firms would normally resort to email, maybe like a WhatsApp for business. There's a couple of other applications like Client Window, which is like a WhatsApp for accountants type thing. But why did you default to Slack?
I think the key thing to say there is I didn't start my practice and then go, right, I'm going to use Slack and that's going to be the platform I'm going to use to sort of deliver most of the comms, to build the relationship, to do the day-to-day communication with clients. I would say that probably like a lot of practices, I started out on email. I didn't use anything really. I think if anything, maybe if certain clients would message me on WhatsApp, but generally speaking, I would say I was email based for a year, 2 years, and actually not just email based, but also in person. I was in a WeWork in Old Street. I was surrounded by startups, and people would come and see me in person. So, for I guess a good year or so of the practice, I've been running it for around sort of 5 years now, I didn't really use much of the messaging tools at all. Then I started incorporating Slack as I would start to, probably from the client side, if anything. A lot of the tech companies will use Slack as, well, most of them will use Slack, I come across. So they might say, do you use Slack, and invite me, or I might preempt it because I'd see they're using Slack and I'm like, would that be a better way for us to communicate? So that's how it kind of came in, I would say, more via the tech companies. And so it really has been a gradual thing for me. And I guess to answer the question, why Slack over WhatsApp or Discord or Teams or any other means, I think for me, again, initially it was because that was what a lot of the clients I was working with were using. But I would say in terms of functionality, it's just much better suited. So we'll come on to it in a second in terms of probably some of the finer details, but much better suited for business in terms of all the different functionality that I needed. So the ability to sort of group different groups of clients and to create different channels for them and have multiple people within there, and the ability to share documents and links and the search kind of functionality of it. Many different things and automations. And again, we'll come on to this in a second, but probably in more detail. But yeah, the functionality is much more comprehensive than the other platforms for dealing on a multi-client basis, basically. So that was the main reason. I thought it was also quite a beautiful tool. And I guess coming back to it, it's one that is, I would say, generally, other than Teams, it's probably the most prevalent in certainly the client base that I have, but across small businesses, full stop. I guess the most comparable one is Teams, and that'll probably be maybe the key question. Why did you not look at Teams? I mean, I use Microsoft and Google, and I would have got that as part of my Microsoft subscription. And I do use it with some clients, but the key thing for me was the ability to be able to sort of drop files in easily and use the bookmarking functionality, which I found wasn't as good in Teams. So there were some small features that I didn't like, and then over time I found more and more features in Slack that have kind of led me to, I guess, over time, double down on it. I would say initially there wasn't a lot in it, and now I would say definitely, like, there's a lot of factors that I prefer in Slack than I do in Teams or WhatsApp Business or Discord, which I've used as well with clients.
You've mentioned quite a few things there, so like communication, files, links, bookmarks. Like, how exactly are you using Slack, and what are you currently using it for? Because it sounds like it's more than just sending messages.
Yeah, so for me, it's become, and again, it's been a gradual thing, but for me, it's become almost like, and I get that I'm a unique scenario, but almost like the go-to kind of resource for all of my clients. So I would say it's almost like I can say to them, look, you kind of don't need anything else from me other than access to a Slack channel, because within there I'm effectively giving them access to, well, me, and ability to talk to me, but also access to all the things I need to share with them, finance related, because they can access it through there. So whether it be via bookmarks, which are really key, so I'll bookmark to things like, if I just have a look at kind of what I'm bookmarking to my clients, it's some of the key Xero reports. I'm 100% Xero, but I'm linking Xero accounting reports in there. A link to the shared finance folder, a link to a document where I run the payroll review for them, new starter forms, a bookkeeping G sheet where we do this sort of bookkeeping together and we collaborate on, my link to book into me, to have a meeting, a Zoom call with me, the payroll software, Company's House. So all the sort of key links and different places they may need to go, they can find via the Slack. So that's one key area. Also a Notion page, so I use Notion to share to store some of their sort of company data and any notes from meetings. So yeah, they can navigate around.
Do you find that this eliminates kind of those regular back and forth questions you might get from clients where it's like, oh, how do I get access to my Xero again? Or where do I go to find this? It's like just having all of those things in one place. Has that been helpful?
Yeah, well, I think the bookmark side of thing helps that, because they can kind of obviously look at that, and then it doesn't take them long to work out how Slack works, and a bit of education around navigating around, and as long as they're aware that there's a bookmark section there, they'll obviously scan that first. So it does help. So that's one element of it. I think, the questions obviously also still do come in a little bit, but it's such an easy thing to jump into to answer questions. I guess, that's the nice thing about Slack. It's very conversational, but I won't get into that yet. I'll just sort of say the other ways that I use the product. So bookmarks is one. The other key one that I use that is super helpful compared to some of the other products are the automation side of Slack and the ability to basically integrate it into other platforms like Make, and I use a product called Tally Forms, which I use for payroll new starter forms and other things like that. And so for any forms that I'm running for clients, I'm able to do things like sort of the payroll sort of notifications or alerts every month. So sort of like the same day every month, I'll get like 25 different notifications come through my phone when all these sort of alerts are going through to clients on the payroll side. And then I can then run like a payroll sort of sign off by sending in a webhook. So I happen to use Stream Deck to do that, but effectively like you could use any sort of webhook. You could just launch a sort of webhook to, or click a button to send in an approval workflow in there. So I do approval workflows in Slack because you can send in approval buttons, which is quite nice, rather than having to sort of DocuSign everything when it's sort of low-key approvals.
So just because like there's a few things in here that if somebody's never used Slack, it's going to sound like completely alien. So when you say approval workflow and approval button in Slack, what you actually mean, right, is that a message comes in and they have like options where they can literally click a button to approve or come back with comments.
Yeah, exactly. I think unlike some of the other messaging, well, certainly not WhatsApp, I don't know how you do this, but it actually has a functionality whereby you can ask someone to approve something, and you can actually have a button that they click, and then they click it, and then it marks as approved. And it's, I guess, a more, informal ad hoc way of having a kind of inverted commas soft approval, and it's documented. So the Slack data is all saved and accessible, and the history is saved down. So, that can be referred to. But it just kind of took me away a little bit from before I did this. I think I was a bit uncertain how to kind of document the payroll sign-offs, things like VAT sign-offs. Like there were certain sign-offs where I felt like a full DocuSign isn't probably quite right, but I also want somewhere where it's absolutely definitive and clear that something has been reviewed and signed off and has been marked by the client. I think the other side of that as well.
I was going to say, I guess to give an example, right? So in my world at the moment, like when it's time to do the VAT return, my accountant will send me the spreadsheet. I'll review that, and then I'll reply by email and say, yeah, it looks all good, or no, maybe there's an issue here. And then they'll go away and file that. How does that work comparatively in Slack for you and your clients? Yeah,
so the VAT process is a good one. My whole VAT process is probably very different. I have my own VAT sort of review tool in a spreadsheet, which I'll fill it out, I'll review it, and then I'll save it to PDF. And then I actually have some automated commentary in the Excel now, so I will hit a button, it will copy it. But you don't have to do that. But like that's what I do, paste that into the Slack channel, and then I will link the PDF. So I save down to PDF. And then it kind of, obviously I'll copy that in and I'll send that message, and then it basically sort of unfurls, if you like, or it presents a picture of the PDF, which is quite a nice thing compared to some of the messaging tools. So I know I've just used that kind of geeky coding term there, unfurl. But effectively what that means is that when you put links into documents or web pages in Slack, it opens up the kind of what they call metadata, and it shows you a picture of that file or that web page in a much more comprehensive way than it does in a Teams or a WhatsApp. And it's just much more visual. So without actually showing, obviously we're not going to dive in to look at the tool visually today, I don't think, are we? So, but yeah, without doing we could do, yeah, okay, we could do that. But yeah, I guess maybe we'll do that, yeah, because then you can see a bit more clearly maybe some of the reasons why I love the app, which is it is very visual. So, but on the VAT side, that will happen, and then importantly, once I've done that, I then activate a webhook, which is basically just a web address. I use my Stream Deck to do that, so I hit a button on basically a numpad to do that for that particular client. But you could do it a completely different way. You could just go in and drop down on your Chrome browser and activate it, or you could manually activate it. There are various different options that Slack give you to activate that automation. But when you activate it, then it will send it then sends like another message saying, hey, like whoever the client is, like I've reviewed the VAT document. Could you also take a look at it? And once you're happy, can you hit the approve button below? Obviously, drop me a note on this message on the thread if you have any queries, any issues, or comment on the Google document, so the PDF. So and then it will basically give a visual of a button for them to click. So they could do it another way. So they could just say, yeah, it's all good, it's approved. But this is all part of like reducing the friction as much as possible. So this helps to give like a really visual, I guess, like message to the VAT approval. They'll get notified. They see this big visual of the VAT review document. There's a few emojis on there, like, I bolded a few things. And then they've got this button. So it's all very visual and very clear what to do. It just gives them complete clarity as to what they're doing. And obviously when they hit that button, it's very binary. Like I know that they've approved it because they've hit a button and then it says, they've approved the VAT return. Then it will notify me, and it will also then present another button which says Sidgrove or Dave to hit this button when they've submitted the VAT return. So it kind of, and then obviously I'll go in, I'll submit it, hit the button, and actually without us having to write any text at all, we've had this whole exchange of, here's the VAT return, I've reviewed it, can you review it? Yep, cool, you're happy with it. I've submitted it, and no one's had to say anything, type anything, but you've got a clear audit trail there of what's happened. So that's a really nice example.
Workflow.
Yeah, it's a really collaborative visual workflow. It's very clear what's happening. It's very good from an audit point of view, I think, from the accounting point of view. It's visual. The client isn't kind of going like, I don't really know what to look at, what to do here. But that also, again, obviously that starts taking, we could go into the VAT review product then and start talking about how I've made that, clear as well. But it's just adding on to my whole mindset around how do we make the collaboration, the comms with clients as like enjoyable, frictionless, like beautiful as possible. Because we probably all feel or know that it's, one of the hardest things of really taking the efficiency of what we do to another level and kind of delivering advisory is getting clients on board and getting them to kind of give us the information to deliver the quality insights or to get something over the line quickly. And Slack and things like that kind of process, has been a real step towards just making the communication much more efficient, basically. Yeah, trying to make it as easy as possible for the clients. Again, a lot of my clients work in Slack already, but if they don't, at least they know that if they use this one tool, that's kind of the only tool that they need. So I always hear this kind of, the mindset that I don't want to give clients another app to use. But I think my mindset towards using Slack would be that it would become the central portal, that it would be the place that clients would go. And then you can bookmark to Xero, you can bookmark to the payroll tool, you can bookmark to the finance, folder where they can find everything you've done for them. You can bookmark to the Calendly link that books in time with you. And then obviously, you've got an open messaging forum where they can ask you what they want. And
I think
that's the way forward.
So one of the things that people will no doubt be thinking about this is that Slack is essentially giving your clients unlimited 24/7 access to be able to message you directly or message the team directly, which for some firms might be quite a worrying thought because clients can be quite demanding. They can come in with requests, and it's reasonable to expect that you'd like some kind of filter there potentially. But what you've essentially done is just kind of like open the gates and just giving them complete access to you at all times. And I think the benefit of that, which we'll probably get onto in a second, is that it actually allows you to have or build much deeper relationships with them and be able to advise them potentially much better because you've got this constant dialogue going with them. So I guess, how do you find that? Like, how has giving access to Slack to your clients and opening up this kind of constant conversation helped you to build better relationships with them?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because in a way, like it's just a hypothesis. Like, I don't know many firms who've actually done this. So like when people say, oh, well, we can't do that because we'll just get messaged all the time. But how many people have actually done it? Like that's all obviously based on the hypothesis that is what would happen. And I guess I probably thought that might be the case too. I think probably when I started doing it, that was probably my hesitancy, which was I'm not charging them enough to give all of them access to Slack. But I've not experienced that. That is definitely not what I've experienced at all. Perhaps when you're onboarding and they're new, they might ask a few questions. But I kind of found the opposite to be true because in emails, I found that it would be, if anything, I would have a lot of back and forth, and you wouldn't be able. There's a lot of in Slack. There's a lot of kind of just, you can reiterate things in short sentences and short words and with a little emojis, and there's a lot of reaction that can happen and responses that can happen without having to have a sort of almost a curated, almost this finite kind of created email. And there's something a bit more sort of definitive around having to polish an email and send it, whereas Slack, it has allowed me to be much more, I guess, just human in the way that I talk to clients, and it, yeah, a lot less gets kind of lost in translation, I think.
You're right. If you think about the time it takes to write out an email, you tend to stress over whether an email's been written correctly, like you say. Whereas a Slack message, it's like sending a WhatsApp. You almost type it without looking at it and hit send. Like, it's kind of short and snappy. So I can imagine the actual time saving of communicating that way for you has been huge. Like, how do you think it's helped you to actually like move more into this kind of advisory quote unquote space with your clients then, by having this kind of open dialogue with them?
Yeah, it's massive. I mean, I've been saying this to a lot of people recently, because I feel like, you know, I've now reached a point now where it hasn't really been a conscious thing, but I guess that's why I'm having these kind of conversations with you, and why I'm going to be talking about it a bit over the next year and some of the content I put out. But it's almost like I've got to a point now where I look back and go, geez, like, this is like probably my most valuable tool when it comes to advisory. And that's because one of the hardest things, and I'm going to be talking about this journey soon, I think it's something that I really want to share, but my journey with kind of advisory is really all about my journey of going, right, well, I did it for one company as a head of finance. How can I scale that to loads? It's really hard. And that's been something I've been working on, well, over the last 5 years, amongst other things. And the biggest issue with that you don't realise until you start a practice, and why you have people like me coming in, starting my practice, and then getting pissed off with accountants, not thinking they're not doing a good job, and then you start your own practice and you're like, okay, yeah, I'll shut up for a bit now. Like, it's really hard.
Yeah. And
so when I realised that was kind of like, there was this moment where I realised, oh, wow, yeah, geez, so much of the value of what I was generating and what I was able to do was driven by me sitting behind the store, or like being at all the management meetings, or like overhearing the ops teams talking about something, or knowing the guys at the store and knowing what they're doing and how the ops work. And, well, yeah, they told me this thing when we were at drinks the other day, and oh, yeah, now I'm seeing that on the numbers. And so much of it was that. So much of it was like being involved in the business and them trusting me completely, me trusting them or knowing them, and that kind of nuance. And also just being able to like just walk past, hey, can I just talk to you about this little thing? And then just, you know, drag you into, you know, that kind of thing. And that was the thing. That is the kind of relationship that is the thing, obviously, you miss when you have an accounting firm, when you're not physically in that company. And I would say that Slack is the closest thing. It is the best tool to get as near to that kind of relationship as possible without actually having that relationship. And so I would say, going back to the point around firms worrying that perhaps clients will contact them all the time, it really depends. Look, I know there are nuances around this, and I know that I have a certain type of client base, and I'm not saying, okay, I might have opinions that in the future I would like potentially all clients to be on Slack or something similar. But I think I understand why, or what I'm sort of proposing is that perhaps this is something that firms would look at for those particular clients that maybe are the higher value, that are the advisory clients, that you see potential to tap into more FD services, you have potential to tap into more sort of ongoing management accounts, forecasting, you're sitting on the board meetings, and perhaps you're doing a fully outsourced finance department. And don't just see it as a way to go, oh, but we're already getting paid and they're okay with the service. But so many opportunities come up this way, as well as hopefully the quality of the service improving. But that I just wanted to make that point. But what I would say is that the other thing is that this whole mindset around, well, I can't give my clients access to me all the time because I'll get overwhelmed with information. My response to that also is a little bit like, particularly if it is a high value client, cutting off the channel of communication doesn't stop the problem going away. So if a client is contacting you, there's probably a reason why they're doing that. So I don't really get that whole mindset, because of course there are exceptions. I don't have many of them, but there'll be exceptions where you've got a client just contacting you for the most ridiculous things all the time, and perhaps there's a conversation there, and that might even be a conversation that ends with, we're not a good fit. But I don't have experience of that at all. I would say clients only ask, I mean, the hypothesis that is the case is, oh yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was going to say, actually, so we use Slack in Journey. Journey is a growth marketing agency. We work with software companies as well. And I guess Journey's an outsourced marketing function in the same way that you're an outsourced finance function. It's just a different department. And, you know, we have Slack channels with all of our clients. And I would say that our experience is exactly the same, in that we're not getting inundated with messages all day, every day. But what it does, and you've already mentioned this, is two things. First of all, it gives you access to conversations happening in the business that you otherwise wouldn't hear if you weren't in the office with them. So Slack almost has this kind of default public mentality where everything gets shared in channels. And even if you're not engaging in that conversation, you're seeing and hearing what's going on just by being there. So you do pick up all of these small details and things that are happening and side conversations that are taking place, which are important to the work that you're doing, even if you're not directly involved. And the second thing is that Slack is almost that place where it encourages people to want to reach out to you. So like, I'll often receive messages from some of the founders we work with, and it could be 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they'll just be asking questions saying, hey, I really want to kind of get your opinion on this. And I don't need to respond at that time, but they know that they can reach out at any time and ask me those kinds of questions. And they're not worried about, oh, is he going to respond, or is he available, or is he going to charge more for this? There's almost like that trust there. And it's just like reaching out to somebody else in the team, or, you know, a business partner, and just saying, hey, like, I'd really appreciate your input. And I guess that's kind of the same as what you're sharing there, right?
That's what I've seen. I mean, again, you know, it goes back to the hypothesizing around what that would look like from firms that perhaps, or people that are working in what I would refer to as quite a transactional way with their clients. I think if you take a transactional relationship and then just go, right, we're going straight into Slack now, then maybe you'd experience that. But that's because you've created a transactional relationship. But when you use Slack from the word go, and you encourage this more sort of like free form, honestly, just more normal conversation. I mean, how do people communicate a lot of the time now? WhatsApp, right? Like, people are used to it. That's how they talk to their mates. And so it encourages that similar, hey, this is how I talk to my mates. Yeah, well, maybe we could be friends as well. Like, that's quite important. Well, that is a trusted relationship. I've always said that. I think that, you know, people go, oh, you can't be friends. Building a trusted relationship, if you want to do advisory for a client, is super important. And, you know, I'm talking about advisory. I'm not talking about an audit client, or, you know, something where you're very much having to keep that independence. So I think, I lost my train of thought there because someone just come in.
That's all good. I guess Spot would be helpful, right? So like we've spoken around a lot about like how you use Slack and why you use it, and how it's really helping you to build those advisory relationships with your clients. Like, are you able to share a bit more of the actual like practical how? Like, are you able to do a screen share right now? I don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah. Well, I've got obviously this is what I'm working on with my project, The Circle, at the moment. So a big part of the delay after teasing it for a long time is because everything we do is sensitive. So, you know, I've been doing a big effort to kind of desensitize things, create a really real life kind of demo company. But yeah, I do have a Circle, some demo data that I could jump into here and just show a little bit of the interface, particularly for those maybe who haven't seen it before. So
let's do it.
Shall I just share my screen?
Yeah, I think a visual would be great to help put some of the kind of concepts that we've spoken about, like let people actually see what it looks like in reality.
Yeah, let me just one second.
This isn't planned, by the way. I never told Dave we were going to do a screen share in this call.
I mean, none of this was planned at all, was it? So how's that looking?
Yeah, I can see it fine, mate.
Yeah, cool. So you can see. So I obviously don't want to tap into any of the clients. So you can. Yeah, I'll show you as much as I can without obviously tapping into any of these channels, because obviously there will be client stuff in there.
But you can see I have this sidebar out of interest.
Which one here? This?
Just the list of clients on the left.
I don't have any issue with that. People know we've got clients.
Cool. Just checking, mate.
Yeah, no, all good. I don't know. Someone tell me. No, I don't think there's any problem with that, is there? So yeah, no, this is how I've got it laid out. So I've got a lot of clients and people on here, but these, I guess, I've got a core section here. So I've created a section where I've got some of my sort of key clients, if you like. You can see this lock symbol. So these are all sort of private groups where if they have Slack already, so I'll just go into the cost of it, by the way. I think I pay something very small, like £20 a month, because a lot of my clients already have Slack. So they're able to connect to my Slack for free, basically, well, on top of the subscription they're paying. And there's no additional cost to connect them into mine because they already have Slack. So there's that element. But also, if you pay for a subscription, which is, I think, is around £6 or £7 a month, you also get 5 guest users. So you get 1 paid user and 5 guests as well. So that's how I will tend to invite clients if they don't already have a subscription to Slack. So that's around like £1 a month per person. So it's not expensive as a tool, so just to cover that one off. And then these are private groups. So yeah, I will invite obviously certain members of staff in there. You can see there are some scenarios where maybe I've got down here a couple of different groups where I've got certain people in specific groups. So in that instance, actually with Waring, we've got some investors in one of the groups, which is why we've split it out. And then one of them's actually got a whole bunch of different members of the team in order to get information. So that's kind of a little bit of a sort of me saying, there's nuance to different clients. They like to work in slightly different ways. That's just an example of that. So, but yeah, going into the interface at the top here, this has actually changed a little bit. And let me just see if I can activate there we go. You can see the mouse a bit better. It's changed a little bit. So you used to have all the bookmarks across the top here. I'm going to be honest, I kind of preferred that. But anyway, it is what it is. So Slack looks like this. So you can hover over the bookmarks. And yeah, there you can see some of the things that I've tagged in my demo company. It's different across all different clients. I might be tagging specific G sheets or things that we have to do at month end or particular sites that are important. But in this instance, here's a kind of good example of some of the things that I would tag. I mentioned these before, but new starter forms and bookkeeping collaboration, and we'll go into that in a second. Things like if they want to book in with me, they're all there, so they can just click through and get straight to it. Yeah, that's the bookmark section, really nice. 0 reports, I tend to probably put a few more than you're seeing here. But I still got you, yeah, good. I tend to put a few more than this, but yeah, just showing you that you can create folders and put things like reports in there. For a lot of clients, I always have a folder where I'll put like videos. So like I'll have a whole list of like walkthrough videos like this, and walkthroughs from Loom, and then I'll save them down in there. So that's another one that I'll tend to do. Files will show you anything recent that you've shared in the Slack, so you can search those. And yeah, at the top you've got a search bar. So it's a really comprehensive search facility, as long as you've got the Pro subscription to Slack, and there is a free one, so that's worth considering as well. You can search everything historically across all of your different channels. They have a Canvas section, so you can just do ad hoc notes. They've got other bits and pieces as well. These are kind of new, so I won't go too much into them because I don't use them a lot at the moment. And then, yeah, obviously the key part of it is like your WhatsApps, your Teams, your Discords. It's a messaging service. And you can see I've just been basically using this as a means to test out some of the workflows around certain things. So I'm just going to show you how some of those work right now. So let me just, a second. Let's just go. I'm just going to get my VAT tool so you can see how it works as well. Okay. Try not to share stuff that I shouldn't be. Okay, cool. Right. So hopefully you can still see the Slack page there.
Yeah, all good.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. So let's just maybe. I think this should be fine. Then where should I start? Let's start with the bookkeeping tool. So let's actually do what I would do if I'm going to do bookkeeping for a client. So I'd come into, I have a G sheet for all of my clients. I know we're going slightly off topic here because it's a separate kind of conversation all in its own right. I'd refresh the data in the back end of here. So again, it's off topic, but I guess let's cover off. I have the bank feeding in here via products called Geocon. I then refresh the feed, and then I hit this button, it refreshes the data, does some stuff with ChatGPT. And then I might make some comments like, I don't know, like just, it's a software that, whatever. I might put some random comments in there, whatever it is. And then I'll send it to the client. So the way that I'll send it to the client is I hit this button here. I don't necessarily have to hit that button. I'm just showing you some of the capabilities of what Slack can do. So I could have obviously just copied the link to this and put it into the Slack. But by doing that, effectively what I've done...
We didn't see a Slack button then. Which button did you click?
So I hit... But I'm just showing you some of the... This is basically just an integration from Make. So, sorry, it might blow people's minds a little bit. But like effectively, I'm hitting this button here in the G Sheet.
Oh, on the left. Okay.
Yeah, over here. And then that is then activating a workflow in here. So then that just sends this through to the client. So
got it.
Rather than going in specific details of what I'm doing here, because it's probably a story for
a whole series of tutorials.
Yeah, I mean, I can show you what it looks like if I just grab the link, because that's probably going to be most helpful. So I could do something like, I don't know, or just put a relevant emoji in this, let's say bookkeeping update. So I'll do it manually. Okay, so we'll do, and then I'll just put it here, and then I'll link that. So then I can link to that page, and you'll see that when I send that, you'll understand what I mean about unfurling. So you can see how that then just expanded out in a way you don't get in WhatsApp, you don't get in Teams, as far as I'm aware. And this is actually quite important because the client just, it's pretty obvious like what they're doing here. Obviously, I add a little bit more texture to that to, I don't know, part of it, honestly, is just to like make sure the client can't miss it. It's pretty clear, and obviously then I give them a bit of an instruction down here each time as well. So they'll go into there, they'll fill it out, tick these buttons if they send it through to, I use Data Molino, but same as Dext. Then when they're done, I've told them to hit that button. So most of them do. So when they hit that button, nothing will happen, apparently. Okay. It did. It's just in a bit of a delay. And so it sent this this automation. So this is actually a automation in Slack. And again, I know that I've done it in a bit of a sort of, I don't know, codey kind of way there, like using the Google Sheets app script and Make. But effectively, you can actually activate these workflows here by other means. And as I mentioned before, they do this really nice thing whereby you get a button that you can click. So yeah, then I basically I would then click that. So the clients then notify me without having to have this whole conversation around, I've done it, I've updated it. They can then hit that button. It sort of appifies it. And then I click to say, I'll take it from here. So that's one kind of area where I use this sort of collaboration in here with clients. The other one we talked about is VAT returns. So I'm just going to grab an example. You can see, obviously, it's like super visual with all the emojis, and like this got some nice formatting, so the bullet points and the bolding kind of works quite well in it. I don't know how it is in Teams and other platforms, but yeah, it kind of looks pretty smart. And then what I'll do again, I will link in the VAT return. I don't know if I want to do that though, because I don't think I have anything desensitized. Yeah, I won't do that because I don't have a desensitized version of the VAT. So that would have unfurled the VAT return in here as well, but I haven't linked it. And then I will send another workflow through, which will be this one here. So then it sends
how are you
this
doing
through.
that?
So I'm using a Stream Deck button. I'm sending like a webhook. So if you go into here, so I go into the view channel details, integrations. Let's just go to add automation. So I'm just going to search circle. And these are my automations that I've got here. So this is the VAT approval. If I go into that, I'll show you how it was created. So it's sort of like a low code. It's really simple to create, to be honest with you. You sort of drag functionality in here. And it's activated.
This is Zapier.
Yeah, very similar. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But the thing is, right, I've got sort of 3 different types of automations across most of my clients. So VAT approval, the bookkeeping thing I just showed you, the payroll confirmation, which I'll show you in a second. And really, I'm just duplicating them across clients once I've created them. So you can then just go in and duplicate these and then just change the channel that they relate to. So in this instance here, it had a webhook, and I so happened to have linked it to a button, but you don't need to do that. So for example, I could then put this webhook in the bookmarks as an example, or just actually, to be fair, I could just put like another folder in here and just say like webhooks. For example, let's just put a little emoji at the front. It's fun, isn't it? and then I'll add a bookmark in there, and I'll just call it like VAT approval. Okay, and again, I like to make everything look beautiful, so I'll just be like, put a tick in there or something, just to add something visual. And then like, so for example, like if I didn't have a Stream Deck, wow, I've obviously hit that a lot of times. So yeah, then you would
So if the client hasn't submitted their VAT return after this, then you're going to be pretty pissed.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to get their attention.
Yeah.
You can probably use this card a few times every year, but well, actually not every 5 years. I would say this is a 1 in 5 year type level of persistence. So use it wisely. Yeah, no, I've obviously just clicked that webhook a bunch of times there, but yeah, if I hit that button there, it's going to run the webhook, and then it's going to run that automation again. So 604, yes, that's just run it again. So there's different ways you could activate it, and I think that's quite a nice one. So that's a way you can activate them ad hoc if you wanted to. But yeah, just showing you some of the functionality. And then the final one is that I have a process around payroll. So this is desensitized. Yeah, these are all made up people, just my circle made up fake company. And I have a process by which I basically review payroll every month with all the payroll clients by looking at variances, and then they'll come in and comment and on the right hand side here. And I will ask them to review the document. So the first thing that I will do is it will send a notification to them automatically on the 20th of the month to ask them to look at the payroll. And then when I've basically done the payroll review and I've checked it and I'm going, yeah, I'm happy with it, I've made some comments, I want them to review it, then I'll run another webhook. So I could add this to here again, but I'm just going to activate it from my Stream Deck right now. And it runs that review straight into the channel, unfurls the document, and basically notifies whoever the contact is I need to see it. And then it gives a little bit of a delay, and then it runs another webhook for the authorization. Sorry, the authorization to review. So the client will look at it, make some comments. They might make some, they might put a message in here on the thread, another nice feature of Slack, and say, this is totally wrong. And then obviously at that point I'll panic a little bit and get back to them quickly. But yeah, obviously once they're happy with it, I'll tell them. They might say on here as well, like they might actually say, actually, all good, go for it. And I will actually say to them, can you just hit the button to approve it? Because then it just gives a binary, they're okay with it. So yeah, hit the button. And then it says, go and proceed with setting up payroll. And yeah, that's cool. So I'll show you what happens when I hit this one as well, because this is quite neat. They approve the VAT return, and then it gives me a button to hit. I should probably have this for payroll as well. It runs another workflow, so it's all part of the automation in Slack, that when I hit that, they just get notified that I've submitted it. So it's just sort of keeping them moved in an automated way. So that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour of it.
I think that's super helpful to give people like a visual of exactly what's possible. There was a lot of stuff in there that's probably like 3, 4, 5 steps beyond where people need to get to right now with all of the advanced automations and webhooks and stuff.
100%. 100%.
If I'm a firm listening and I'm trying to build out an advisory offering with a handful of clients in my practice, let's say 10 clients, Slack is a tool that I've identified as being a good route to communicate with them. Putting all of those automations and webhooks to one side, what would your advice be in terms of like where and how is the best place to get started in using Slack for that type of firm?
I think the best opportunity that you can have, if you do work with any companies that use Slack, like I'm not saying that that's going to be the largest majority of, there may be some firms that don't have any clients on Slack at all and they're niche in construction or areas where maybe it's not used, then, well, firstly, maybe this isn't relevant to you, but just be curious about it. I'm going to be putting out more content around it and how I use it, certainly next year. But secondly, if you do have clients that are using it, I'd see that as a really great opportunity to try it. If they, ask the question, do you use Slack? Is it, particularly for those clients you are working with on a more regular basis. So by that, I mean definitely those that you're preparing management accounts for on a monthly basis. Ask the question, and if they do, then use that as an opportunity to maybe try it out. I would say that the most important thing, in my opinion, if you're going to implement it, is I don't think you can go half-hearted. The reason I say that is because this whole mentality of, well, clients don't want another app, I'm completely on board with that. I completely agree with that mentality. We don't want this app fatigue. We don't want to overwhelm them with another tool that we're, inverted commas, forcing them to use. So you've got to make it worth their while. It won't work if you sign up to Slack and you treat it like an email system and you don't respond in a way that's conversational. That's not going to work, because the clients will then go, well, you don't respond on Slack, so I'm not going to use it. And then what happens is then they never use it again, and you lose all the benefits. So you've got, as long as you make it worth their while, as long as you make it a platform that they get value on when they go onto it, then they won't pester you elsewhere. They won't be, pester is the wrong word, isn't it? But they won't go on to email. Well, it is annoying. That probably is the right word when they're coming at you from all angles. Like, when they're on email, then they send a WhatsApp and then they phone you, and then if they know that Slack is somewhere that when they ask you a question, you respond, you then know a number of things. Well, firstly, that you can then utilize the benefits of Slack because they will actually use it. So investing time into building things like I've done workflows and using the bookmarks the right way and building a whole ecosystem around it as a firm is wasted time if you do that and a client doesn't use it. So you've got to be all in. So I'd say you need to be all in if you're doing it. So that's a really key part of it. Yeah, I would just, that's kind of the main point, just to go all in. And I don't know, mate. It's
I guess what you're saying is it's like almost Slack becomes the default communication channel for that client. So if you've identified some clients where, let's say it's like you said, like you're delivering monthly management information, you're working at a quite high level with them. The default going forwards is that every time they send you a message, say, hey, thanks, can you put this in Slack instead? Every time you want to send them a file, you send it through Slack instead. Every time you want to request information from them, you ask them in Slack initially.
Well
and
said.
then if they don't respond there, you chase them up on WhatsApp or phone and say, hey, you need to check Slack because that's where I'm reaching out to you.
Exactly, yeah. My brain stopped working, mate. Obviously, people won't know, but this is late. We're doing this late on a Friday, so I'm losing it. But no, 100% that. So it's been a gradual thing for me to kind of go, particularly clients who, legacy clients that I had on WhatsApp and email. Yeah, it was a bit of an effort to kind of, well, not an effort, but I had to, as you say, clients might message me on WhatsApp and then I'll message them back in Slack and go, oh, can you just move this over to Slack? So there is a little bit of that, and then it becomes your one source of truth. So that's ideally the best way to use it. But as I said, it can just be, start with that one client that's already using it, because then they will respond to you there, because that's how they work internally. So then you'll just be a channel on their own workspace, particularly if you pay for it and use Slack Connect. The way they'll see you is as a channel on the platform that they already use, and then they can just click into it and ask a question. And, as we talked about obviously loads of the benefits here, but I really hope that those that tap into it would soon realise that you're starting to build this really conversational kind of way of working with the clients, that, as you say, they share more, they open up more, it's more of a human kind of type relationship. The more that you build that kind of relationship, the more you start to kind of hear about opportunities, or they actually feel comfortable to share potentially opportunities to build new things, because they're a bit more ad hoc in their kind of like, we're thinking about doing this thing, would you be able to help us with it? And then you're going to go, yeah, and you can dive straight in, and it doesn't feel so transactional, and they don't feel so much like they can't throw opportunities your way and they're going to have to wait for ages, or there's going to be a sort of defined fee or proposal service you're going to have to go through. So there is a level of change in the way you work with the clients, but I would say, like, a lot of the clients come back to me, particularly recently, where perhaps I've been going in now and replacing potentially full members of the team or outsourced FDs. Their kind of like real pain point was that they felt like they needed someone full time in there, or they needed someone that they could turn to at any point, but they felt that the amount of money they were spending on someone full time wasn't value. So I think the biggest opportunity here with using a platform like Slack or Teams or on messaging services is by giving companies that kind of access or assurance to know they've got basically a full-time member of staff that they tap into when they need to.
Yeah.
And that usually for me isn't actually a lot of time every week. It's just that they need to know, or they have this huge value from them knowing that they can do if they need to.
I was literally about to say, I think one of the biggest challenges of any fractional offering is showing that you can demonstrate the same amount, if not more value than having a full-time staff member, because essentially that's always the trade-off. It's like, do I hire full-time or do I outsource fractionally? They make the decision to outsource because it's normally more cost-effective, plus there's other benefits around scale and flexibility, whatever. But the easiest way to demonstrate that value is to show that you're available all the time. Doesn't mean you have to be available all the time, but just being in Slack and being in those channels makes you a part of the team. You're not a fractional person. You're not sitting outside of the company. You're very much inside the company and inside the conversations that are happening. And, you know, I find that in journey with some of our clients where you become part of the team, even though you're not actually, you know, in the business full time.
Well, that's exactly it. And it's a brand new opportunity because it just hasn't been possible before. And I would say, you know, Slack as a platform and these kind of platforms, it's a brand new opportunity because I think that people are more open than they ever have been to want to embrace them. And I'm seeing that. So it's not just me saying, I like working this way. I'm not going to do VAT returns on an email anymore. I'm going to go fully in on Slack, or, you know, and I'm moving more and more towards the point where I think I won't be doing emails at all with clients. I'm pretty much at that point. And by the way, a really important point to mention on that, and Slack and messaging services as a whole, is that when you get messages on Slack, you know it's from a client or someone work related. When you get an email, it's 90% of the you know, whatever the percentage is, it's really high. Like, it's just random stuff that you don't need to action urgently. So I know when a message comes through on Slack, that's a client asking me a question. It's something that I need to respond to. So there is something about that kind of, like, in a world where we're getting overwhelmed with emails, you can actually protect who messages you on Slack. You can't have random people don't just fly into your inbox in Slack. You have to authorize them to do that. So that's a really important point to mention. And yeah, look, it's just, I've said it so many times, but it's all about, I think advisory for me is so nuanced. It's not financial models and forecast and management packs and whatever else people are using to do advisory, or apps, you know, apps are being marketed for advisory. The answer is it's all of those things, but it's also thousands of other things. It's whatever that client wants advice with or help with. It just so happens to be that a set of management packs and something visual helps us tell the story and provide advice in a more relatable value. But there are so many aspects into it. Some of the best value I give to clients has got nothing to do with those things. It could just be that they're able to tap into me fast and get something done and get a response, and then quickly jump on a Zoom and then, you know, tweak a little thing for a due diligence for a fundraise that's just literally been announced that they need to get off to a potential investor, and then they've made a decision and they've had a good outcome on the back of that. And that's not even a scenario I could ever document because it will maybe never happen again. But it is that whole thing of, you're basically taking on that role like I talked about. You're behind the store, in the office, next to the ops team, like not physically, but you are in terms of virtually. And, you know, you've got to embrace that fully, because you can't go into this with a mindset of transactional practice, us and them, but we're going to use Slack. It's got to be, I'm their head of finance, we're their head of finance, we're their advisory team, we're part of their team. And you may have noticed on the stuff, well, you wouldn't have seen it actually, but it's a really key part of what I do. I don't brand anything Sidgrove where possible. Like, all of those automations are branded the circle, because I'm the head of finance. That's how I think. I'm their head of finance. I'm not their accountant, external accountant. So year-end stuff and things like that and compliance probably will have a Sidgrove branding on it for me. But, you know, any internal documents or like workflows and conversations, that for me, it's about how do I bring the experience they have in their team to the experience that they have with me, so that I am part of the team. And I'd like to think and feel that most of the clients where I'm doing advisory, which is this is all about, feel that I'm part of the team, not their external accountant. And I truly believe and think that is the heart of what can drive the really long-standing, sustainable, like high-value advisory relationships. And then look, of course, the conversations around management packs and financial models and runway analysis and, you know, whatever else, you know, that I might talk about and show people how to do are important. But, you know, the relationship is the absolute foundation for then doing all those things and kind of identifying where they're helpful and when they're important, and when to invest in time in doing it, and capturing the opportunity to, I guess, monetize those things.
I think on that note, it's probably a good time to wrap. This has been super helpful. Thank you for running through and sharing your Slack process and your experience. We'll make sure to include a link to Dave's LinkedIn profile somewhere around this video if you're watching, or somewhere on the page if you're reading. If there's one email you should subscribe to and look out for your inbox each week, it's the Firm Weekly Digest, where you get sent episodes and clips from people like Dave in practice, sharing what they're doing in their firms to streamline services to clients, increase efficiency, grow, scale, or anything else in between all of that. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Dave. Appreciate all of the
Thank you.
The amazing insights, and hopefully have you back on soon.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks for having me. Cheers, guys.